Slough's Labour MP Tandesi is Jeremy Corbyn's new parliamentary private secretary. Tan's with us. Morning, Tan.
Morning, Andrew.
This is surely the very definition of a short-lived gig.
Definitely. Well, look, it is an absolutely great opportunity for me to learn more about the inner workings of the party at the highest echelons, and I was very honoured that the leader of the opposition considered me worthy enough to be his parliamentary private secretary. So what that entails, in essence, is the ability to attend shadow cabinet meetings and other national strategy meetings and so forth. So it's in essence being of service to the leader of the opposition and the leader of the party.
When you found out that you'd got the job, was this a one-on-one conversation with him?
Yeah, no, it was. I was very, very touched that he had that confidence and that trust, and he felt that I would be loyal enough to serve him. And so when he asked that would you consider doing that, I didn't have much hesitation. I mean, previously in the first Parliament, you will have ascertained from our previous conversations for the first year, I didn't even go onto a select committee, let alone going onto the front bench. So in my first term, I thought that I needed to learn more and also to prove myself to Slough constituents, to do the groundwork, attend surgeries and so on. And by the way, this new position doesn't mean that I will be serving my constituents any less within the constituency, and indeed we're not even to the mid-January and I've already held 3 MP advice surgeries, including one last Sunday morning.
Right.
So that level of service will continue regardless to local Slough constituents to address their problems and concerns, while also taking on this huge responsibility on a national level.
You'll know that Rebecca Long-Bailey, the Shadow Business Secretary and leadership contender, yesterday said that she'd give Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party 10 out of 10, which, bearing in mind he just led you to the worst defeat since the 1930s, has got people wondering, well, what would a bad performance look like?
Look, I'm not really into ranking individuals. It's not like the Premier League table where that's something that I'm fixated on in terms of who's first, second, and how many points they've got. But look, there is no getting away from it. We have been given a very clear, strong message from the British electorate that we were not considered worthy enough to serve them as the British government. So we need to dust ourselves off and start the fight back in order to not just regain those lost seats, but also to elect a new leader who will lead us and ensure that there will be a Labour government that millions desperately want and need.
It's a tricky job, though, isn't it? Because the Labour message that you had only last month played well for you in Slough. It led to Labour hanging on in Reading East, even though many people thought they wouldn't do. It played well across London. It's just everywhere else that people didn't like it.
Yeah, I think this election was very special in the sense that it was a very different sort of election. It was in different parts of the country, there were different dynamics at play. So, for example, north of the border, it was more about the nationalism that was, where the Scottish National Party got a very different sort of message out there. Unfortunately, the fanning of nationalism south of the border for Boris Johnson played into the hand of the SNP, but also we suffered in many of those areas that were strongly Leave, whereby we were trying to get out the message that, look, it's about public service, it's about protecting our national health service and so on, that these issues are core, but for them, Brexit became the primary issue and leaving became the primary issue, whereas in the predominantly Remain seats, especially in the metropolitan cities, Brexit was a key issue, but it was about remaining. So we conversely did very well in those seats. So it was a weird sort of election, but I'm extremely grateful to the good people of Slough for once again having bestowed their faith in me and having returned me with a huge majority. And that's not something that I take lightly. And that has increased my level of strength and resolve to make sure that I repay that trust and love and support.
Which of the architects of this disaster do you think should be your next leader?
Well, look, I think Out of the six contenders, I attended the Parliamentary Labour Party hustings last night. So yesterday evening we got to hear the six main protagonists as to what their views were. I still haven't committed to any particular individual, but I will be now having meetings with each of them individually. So that will be very, very manner concerns and also to hear their responses. And once I've heard those, next week I will then be committing to one particular candidate for the leadership and also for the deputy leadership as well.
You must have an idea who's impressing you though, Tan. I mean, I do understand you might say, well, I'm not going to tell you yet, but you must have an idea as to whether you want more of the same, basically the same kind of manifesto, whether you want a sort of pro-European stance. You must have some thought about who the right person is.
Andrew, as always, that is an excellent try to get...
Not a try, it's a question to an elected politician who might want to answer it in front of their constituents.
Yeah, and I will definitely be answering it to the constituents once I've made up my mind, because I don't want to make a half-baked decision and speculate on BBC Radio Berkshire just at this present time. I want to give each of them an opportunity to address my concerns, and my primary aim is, out of all of those candidates, who will be best placed to ensure that there is a Labour government. That is my primary goal. I don't get involved in factionalism. I don't get involved in divisive politics, but the individual is going to be key for me and how they answer my questions.
Final question, back to where we started. You are now Jeremy Corbyn's Parliamentary Private Secretary. He has Prime Minister's questions today in 4 hours' time. What does that involve you doing?
So I was involved yesterday in a meeting to discuss the issues and what sort of things that we would focus the PMQs on, because Jeremy has 6 questions. Unfortunately, I've not been picked, so you will not have the pleasure of hearing me take Alexander Boris Johnson to task. But this morning also I'll be having another meeting at about 9:15 with Jeremy and with the senior team to fix in on those questions.
What
so
the questions
that's
will be.
what my job is. Yes.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. Lovely to talk to you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Pleasure as always, Andrew.
Tan Dessy is the Labour MP for Slough.